My name is Sofia Kofoed. I am the owner of an Instagram account called Ansigt Art. And I started that because I was in high school doing art bachelor and I found my style. And when I decided to pursue other studies, I didn't want to leave the art behind. And I didn't really think that that was such a big deal for me, the art, until I started to do drawings regarding the things that I really care about, emotions and mental health mostly. So yeah, I focus on that. It's called Ansigt because in Danish it's the word for face. And there were always these portraits, weird portraits that I would do in a really abstract way. And for me, it was really this way of expressing myself. And in the end, it also was a way of voicing other people's experiences regarding mental health and mental illness. My artistic background was I did go to the Bachillerato de Artes in Spain, which is basically the art high school. And that's where it kind of started, my style of one-line drawing. But the message, it would have started before. And I don't know if that's my background really, but I was severely depressed for a few years, and that really influences the message that I'm trying to give. But it didn't start like that. It came after starting to draw, I would say. I'm not sure if I consider myself an activist or if it's kind of just my way of expressing myself, because it definitely started out as my personal experiences and my personal inputs on mental health and how it really is present everywhere. But then a lot of people started to join in, and I was voicing other people's experiences. But I think maybe it's a big word to say that I am a social influence. I don't have such a strong community to say that. But there was a moment when it was definitely very empowering and very influential, especially in the people next to me that weren't, I was voicing the concerns and the experiences of other people that were also close to them, and then they were completely oblivious about, and that was my favorite part, I would say. Well, I never imagined that by studying drawing I would actually be voicing anything or, talking about other people's experiences or really being, an activist in that sense, It kind of started just because there was this challenge on Instagram called Inktober, and it happens every October where artists just do a drawing every day. And there are certain templates with words, and I chose one that was all about emotions, which was really interesting because they're usually just Halloween themed. And that's how I started to really use my lines to sort of portray emotions. And then suddenly I was, that's how it started, like emotions with art. At the beginning it was just, this quirky quote and then this weird drawing. And it was just something I did for fun. And suddenly it had an impact. It was like, oh, these 3 lines you can see an emotion, which is really interesting. And then that really led to, later on, doing drawings related to manifesting things about mental health, like every day is mental health, or taking care of yourself is brave enough. But for example, taking care of yourself is brave enough is a drawing that I did on this challenge, and the challenge was just like brave, I think. So yeah, maybe it really did start to tangle up before I realized it, and then I was like, oh, I want to continue doing this, But I don't think I ever thought of it, consciously at least. What I would answer to someone that's kind of saying that just because you post something you're not really doing anything and that it's helpless, I think anything helps, really. I think right now social media is flooded with information about mental health. That wasn't the case when I was bad, and I was on social media and I had no idea what was going on. So I think that really helps because now people have the tools to understand what's going on. I mean, almost everyone has anxiety these days, and they know it's anxiety because they see it on social media. Which is also kind of like weird because most of the times also social media is kind of the source of anxiety, but it can also be a source of help, I think anything helps, and I think just leaving activism to a few, it doesn't help. It doesn't help at all. Everyone has a voice and everyone has their concerns, and that makes it more diverse, which I think is what's needed to hear about what's going on. And in my case, I really saw it, that people were just posting my stuff, and maybe that's a silent way of saying, I know what this is about, but I don't dare to just go on about what it matters to me. But that's kind of a way of saying it, so I really like it, and I think it's essential. I think my Instagram account really helped me and others when it started to not be a community, because, well, maybe in a sort of way. There was especially some stages when it was really, really strong that people would just comment and supporting each other, people they didn't know or people that they did know, which made it even more interesting, I think. To me, it really helped me to see other people's situations too, because for a long time I was just caught up in what was going on with me, which usually happens when you're not feeling well. And in this case, it was really like, I'm not the only one, I'm not alone. You know, there was this stage where I would post people's, you know, experiences, sometimes anonymous, sometimes not. And I knew that I was posting something, and I knew that 3 friends of mine were thinking the same thing but didn't dare to say it. And it was so nice to post that, but knowing that I'm posting all these 3 too, you know. And it was also nice for me to really see all that can really be included in mental health or the lack of it, basically. What I would advise to someone who's kind of starting on social media to kind of be an activist, I would say find what really matters to them, because there are so many causes right now and you can't really focus on them all, you know. I don't feel entitled to talk about Afghanistan right now, but I can follow people who will inform me about it. I do feel like I can talk about mental health because I've been through that. So I think it's very important to be honest about not only what you care about, but what you can actually talk about, you know. Especially if you're trying to grow a community, it's quite important to have a good foundation of sources, you know. There are many people just reposting content and not really knowing what they're doing, and there's really people who are journalists in social media, you know. So I think the most important thing that they should keep in mind is to really have something they care about and that they feel strong enough to talk about, which don't always go hand in hand, because we care about a lot of things, but we are not entitled to inform other people about them. So we can, you know, share the content, which is the other way of helping. So I would say to really focus on that, what really matters to them, what they would stand up for, and what they really want to share, because if not, you will get tired, definitely. I've had the conflict of sharing something really personal that people are not going to get, or something that is, you know, relatable to everyone. And it's quite a weird concept, because there are many times when I'm like, oh, no one's going to like this because it's such a personal thing, they're not going to understand, and suddenly it's the post that gets the most likes because it speaks to them, because they're experiencing the exactly same thing and no one dares to say it, which is quite funny, you know. So in that sense, I think it's quite interesting not to focus on what you think the outcome will be, because it's never what you expect. Like in my drawings about emotions, people loved one that it was the one that I hated the most, and I loved some that haven't really been, you know, connecting with others. So it's always quite interesting to see what they receive and what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I did used to struggle with deciding, should I post this because it's not really going to relate to them, it's more of a personal thing, maybe I should keep it in my diary, you know, not use it as much. But when I was more open about things, it struck to them most. So I think that's also something to keep in mind. Yeah, there was definitely some moments of a lot of pressure of, oh, I should be advocating all the time, you know, every post needs to be about this, and I need to be talking about this because no one's talking about that. And that was very, yeah, that was, I wouldn't say such stressful, but it was something in the back of my mind saying, oh, you need to do this. For me, it was quite essential that my art account would also be my art account, you know. My favorite part of it would definitely be, you know, the activism and talking about mental health. But I also want to post, if I go to the Wicked musical and I draw, the characters, I want to post that and not feel guilty about it because it's my art account, you know. I have kind of a problem making a lot of different accounts for like all sides of me. And I didn't want to make 2 arts accounts, one for activism, one for that. I thought it wasn't, legitimate maybe, because that's also part of me, you know, how I deal with things, with art, with musicals, So I thought, I definitely felt the pressure at some times of, oh, I should be talking about these, or I should talk to this person and see if they can actually talk about this, because I'm not entitled to talk about what they're going through, but I want them to share it. And that was definitely a struggle sometimes, to look at it too much as a empowering thing, and not only something that was also empowering me, my art, what I love. So that definitely, yeah. There are times when I do use captions to express ideas, especially when I was doing all the things where people were manifesting their own experiences. You can't fit that in a post. But for me, it's self-explanatory, you know. Even if it has words beside it, they go together. I couldn't separate the drawing from the sentence because then people wouldn't get it. I think, you know, I have one that is drinking isn't cool, which I relate a lot to mental health. And if I were to not put drinking isn't cool under it, people will not get it. If I put it in the caption, people will be like, wait, what? What's that to do with that portrait? I'm not getting it, you know? But I think when you look at it together, you're like, oh, okay, I kind of see it maybe. And then I could further develop in the caption, you know? There were times when I did that a lot, and there were times when I didn't, you know? When I feel like art is quite self-explanatory sometimes. If I go to a museum, I don't always read everything. That would take out the fun, you know. I also want to know what my input is on that. There are drawings that for me are just so obvious, you know, what it is. And people still talk about, oh, is that this or is that that? And I'm like, nah, but I'm not going to tell you what's the fun in that. If I were to explain every single thing that I post, I think it would lose a lot. I definitely think so. I'm trying to think if there was ever someone who messaged me who I didn't know, kind of saying like, oh, I really like what you're doing. I think yes, but it was mostly people that I might not have known personally, but they were, you know, friends of friends and stuff like that. And I think people were always quite shy about saying that, so they showed it in comments or private messages, but there was never someone who was like, oh, I really want to talk to you about this, you know? It was mostly me kind of chasing them like, oh, I want you to talk about this, you know? But it did grow a community of artists who also share their struggles with in social media. And that was really cool. I would say that was one of the coolest things I experienced, to also see how other people portray mental illness, or having people you love with mental illness. I think also people close to me were quite surprised that I was talking openly about it, because it's just such a great taboo. So yeah, I think in that sense it was quite, for me it was always quite interesting. Of course I love everyone talking about it, but when there were people who I knew were really struggling to tell what they were going through, you know, there's people who are very open about, well, yeah, I've been through this and that, and now I'm like this, and then there's people who are just like oysters, you know, and when you get them to see just a tiny bit of what they're experiencing, to me, so yeah, I feel really grateful when that happens, and I think they do too.